Welcome to today's EESI podcast. Our subject, creating a culture of civility in the workplace in the era of metoo. And our special guest is Joe Bontke. Joe Bontke is Outreach and Education Coordinator for the Houston District of the EEOC. Joe has been in the field of human resources and civil rights for the past 30 years and has experience in employment law and adult education. With a bachelor's in philosophy and a master's in education, he has been a human resources director and a training coordinator for the American Disabilities Act, ADA, Technical Assistance Center, Federal Region 6. Welcome, Joe. It's good to talk to you again.
Nice to be back.
Creating a culture of civility in the era of Me Too. Boy, that's a challenge. What do you think are the three most important points for listeners to know about this issue?
I think not look at it as a challenge is key, because the reality is not a lot has changed. There may be some more fear and trepidations of what has happened yesterday, but most of the training that I do looks at what can I do today to make a better tomorrow. And that rationale in a quick synopsis is, how do I become a bridge builder to act in a manner that creates an inclusive environment? In other words, if I'm reacting like some people have, I would be afraid, they would say, to hire a woman today. And you could almost hear my eyes roll. As a 60-year-old husband, father, grandfather, why would you even think to cut out half of the population because of fear and trepidation that somebody is doing something inappropriate? So being the bridge builder is, let's hire adults. Look at the hard skills that people have, and in an interview, understand the soft skills. And realize that we are at a societal change, the watershed moment of Harvey Weinstein, Matt Lauer, and those that have been caught and, in essence, publicly flogged for the inappropriateness of a cultural divide. The second point is, if we focus on others' needs and consider how our words and actions have an impact even before we say them, realize this is beyond political correctness. You can ask any audience to fill in the blank. A woman's place is in the, and you'll have people say, the home, the kitchen, and some idiot will always go, the bedroom, ha ha ha. And I think the reality is, we don't believe that. While it might be systemic in our society, women have a role in our society that we have to foster. And when we focus on the vocabulary of inclusion, that spells leadership. That's how I'm defining what it is that I'm hoping the people I train understand. And then the third area is conflicts or mess-ups are going to occur in the workplace. And people need to take responsibility for their actions. So in essence, creating a culture of civility looks at the broad picture of those three elements and attempts to get people thinking about, what could I change today to make a better tomorrow?
Give us some practical examples of the kinds of things that we can do in the workplace to help create that culture of civility.
I'm going to bet it's probably 4, 5, maybe 6 years since The Office was on TV, where Michael Scott was the bumbling boss who had a coffee mug that said he was the best boss. But in trainings that I have seen time and time again, clips are lifted off of Netflix and YouTube to show the inappropriateness of leadership at Dunder Mifflin. And I think when we understand the wrongs that need to be righted, instead of what not to do, let's teach them what to do. Let's go 180. Everybody in an audience that's at a training has somebody that they have gotten a constructive criticism sit down with or a finger wagging. And I ask them to remember that person and think how they felt. And there might have been an initial ouch, but once we realized that person who gave us the finger wagging wanted better for us, we respect that person for doing that. And I can see heads nod and smiles because that's reminiscent of a time in your life where you changed a behavior. The reality is that skill set is still yours. You could pay it forward and be that for somebody else. And we call it bystander intervention. And I think it leads into my next point, focusing on others' needs and considerations. If I'm in the break room and I hear somebody telling a great anecdotal story, but they used a term in the story that is less than stellar, I teach people praise publicly, correct privately. After a few minutes, you try to get that person alone and say, I love when you tell a good anecdotal story, but you might have missed that Doris was there, and she was really offended by the term you used. It's probably best to put your head into her cubicle later on and just say you're sorry. That's adult behavior. If I notice something, and I notice something is having a bad day because of it, I think I have an obligation to make the workplace free of unlawful harassment, discrimination, retaliation. Robert Fulghum wrote this book years ago, Everything I Ever Needed to Learn, I Learned in Kindergarten. And I kind of honed back into the simplicity to teach civility is play nice. When you hurt somebody, say you're sorry. Clean up your own mess. Don't hit people. And those very simple things that we learned as early children really still play a role in changing a very, very contentious, very politically polarized society where if we can get people understanding that our common denominator, the thing that brings us together, is business necessity. And that's what we're here for. Job one, do your job, business necessity. Supervisors, anything that takes away from that, you can question. And sometimes you're going to have those conversations.
Joe, are there any other comments you'd like to make before we close?
Very quick one. While political affiliation is not a protected category, and we do have extreme polarization, I like to end with a quick story of two men in my life that were instrumental to teach me civility. My father and my uncle lived in the same house. My uncle was an immigrant to this country from Kelshama, County Mayo in Ireland. And he lived with his sister, my mother, and my father and my sister in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. And I remember as a youngster the two of them arguing during the Johnson administration. My father, an Archie Bunker conservative, my uncle, a new immigrant who really understood from a socialistic society, socialism, democratic socialism. And while I heard them talk about the Johnson administration and argue, I never heard them diss each other. There was never a crossword. It was just about the issues. When I was 40, my dad died. My uncle eulogized him and told that story. A few years later, my uncle passed away, and I was retelling the story. And I had just come to the EEOC some 20 years ago and realized my career in civil rights was based on how I had seen those two men who had helped in my formation argue civilly. We've lost that as a society. I think teaching a culture of civility at work may assist us in getting it back.
Well, thank you, Joe, for your time and your insights on how to create a culture of civility in this era of Me Too.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to today's EESI podcast, Creating a Culture of Civility in the Workplace, with the EEOC's Joe Bontke. If you would like to know more about creating a culture of civility in your workplace, simply contact EESI and ask to speak to one of our HR business partners. EESI handles payroll, compliance, employee management and training, managerial training, benefits packages and administration, insurance, and a whole host of HR-related services that can save you time, money too, and give you the peace of mind of knowing that all your HR responsibilities are being handled professionally and being submitted on time. Simply call us at 210-495-1171. That's 210-495-1171. Or contact us via email at hr@eesipeo.com. Thank you for listening to today's podcast, Creating a Culture of Civility. part of our podcast series designed to help you simplify business.